So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to part 6 of the topDNS Best Practice webinar series. We still have people joining the room. We will start shortly. Please stay on the line. So again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to today's topDNS Best Practice webinar. There are still people joining the room. Please stay on the line. We will start shortly. So it's 3 minutes after the hour, and I think this is a good point to start with a webinar. So again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Lars Steffen. I'm head of International Digital Infrastructures and Resilience at ECHO, and I welcome you to part 6 of the topDNS Best Practice webinar series. And today we are talking about addressing, evidencing, and mitigating abuse in Web3. This is a webinar in collaboration with CleanDNS and with Freename. From Freename, we have today with us Federico Costa. He's co-founder and CTO of eco-member Freename. And also with us is Chris Lewis-Evans. He's Director of Governmental Engagement and Internet Abuse Mitigation, also of eco-member and topDNS co-founder CleanDNS. So thank you very much for being with us today. Before we dive into substance, I would like to take you through the housekeeping rules. So like every webinar, of course, this webinar is being recorded. The recording will be available after the meeting. You are muted throughout the webinar. Questions can be submitted via the questions part of the GoToWebinar tool. So on the right-hand side of your screen, you have the GoToWebinar dashboard, and there you can type in your questions in the questions part, or you can also raise your hand if you would like to raise a question verbally. If you would like to go for that option, please raise your hand. We will unmute you. And please state your name and your affiliation before you ask a question. After the webinar, we will display a short survey when you close the GoToWebinar tool. It would always be helpful if you can provide feedback if this webinar has been useful, so that we can learn and also improve the content of our webinars. This best practice webinar series is presented by the topDNS initiative by ECHO. So if you would like to learn more about the initiative, you can follow the link that I put in the chat. So it's just topdns.echo. There you can learn the latest status of the work of the initiative by ECHO that is handling all aspects of DNS abuse. And on the slide, you can see who's participating and supporting this initiative. And if you would like to learn more, please follow the link or contact me after the webinar. And if you would like to be added to that list, please feel free to reach out to me as well. Just to be complete, if you would like to know who's on the steering committee and who's guiding the initiative, here is the list of names and organizations that are leading this. And based on this, I would like to encourage everyone to take a look at the website and to let us know if you're interested in participating in this. as we are now taking a look at the at number 6 of this webinar series, of course, there are 5 that are already recorded and that you can have access to. I share the link in the chat as well. So via this link, you can find the recordings of the 5 previous webinars that cover a variety of different topics, like the QPI program of PIR, standards and frameworks of evidencing abuse, how to investigate online abuse with free tools. We have an update from the latest Compass report from the DNS Abuse Institute that we received last month, and also a webinar that we did in collaboration with the DNS Research Federation 2 months ago. And of course, there will be further webinars in the pipeline for January and February next year in collaboration with IQ Global and Domain Crawler. So we will post those dates as soon as they are available on our website and share them through our channels. And with this, I would like to hand over first to Chris. And Chris, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lars, and sorry for that. And hopefully you can see my screen now. So just a quick briefing about me. So I'm Chris Lewis Evans, Director of Government Engagement and Internet Harms Mitigation at CleanDNS, where we do abuse handling and mitigation services, and also take in reports of abuse, both within normal internet and also Web3. And also on the IP space. So that's a very quick briefing about me, and then we'll go into a little bit more further on. Federico, just over to you to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Chris. Yes, so hello, nice to meet everybody. I'm Federico Costa. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Freename. Freename is a Web3 domain and TLD platform that will enable users to own their own TLDs and domains on the Web3. By this I mean that we enable directly users to have a new kind of domain, which is not on the regular ICANN space, and we enable from them to actually have and handle new kind of features. So you can actually have your own website that has normal domains, but also other new kind of features, such as also sending crypto payments. You can also use it inside marketplace and other kind of ecosystem of the Web3 space. And I'm happy to be here, to join here to explain together what we have been working on in order to address evidencing and mitigating the abuse in the Web3 space. That is something like a topic which is rising into the normal conversation right now. And however, there is a lot to talk, and I'm happy to be here with Chris to discuss about that. Thank you, Chris, for the space. I leave you to show.
Brilliant, thank you, Federico. So yeah, and today, and thanks to topDNS and ECO for allowing us to do this, we are going to talk about, how we address and evidence and mitigate abuse on Web3. So something that ourselves and Freename have been working on, that we published a white paper a couple of months ago now, I think it was. It seems a long time ago already, fast closing on the end of the year. But so we'll go over that. What we will start with is what is our understanding of the ability to detect and disrupt those harms. I think within the internet as we know it now, our understanding really has grown and it's maturing about how we can identify, how we can mitigate, and how we can disrupt that harm. So as adoption of Web3 becomes more and more, and Federico went through a few usages of Web3, how does that affect and change what we're seeing? Are those abuses that we're all used to, are they the same, or are they going to be all different? So I think what we're seeing to start with is many are very similar. The abuse on these platforms have the same end game. The malicious users generally want to make some sort of financial gain out of there. There's some normal disruptive entities as well, as we'll go through some of the harms in the forthcoming slides. But on the sort of financially motivated ones, what we are seeing though is that some of the standard types of abuse are a lot more tailored to how Web3 works and how some of the content is displayed and utilized within Web3. So going on to the next one, we will have a look at some of these harms here. So as you'll see here, many of these harms are really well known, but do they have all the same sort of indicators and meaning in the Web3 space? So phishing is a massive problem that we deal with, probably the highest type of abuse that we see, and likely that's going to be the same in Web3. However, there's going to be a lot more concentration on the types of information that they're phishing. So is that the capture of seed phrases, private keys, rather than the sort of standard credit cards, information and personal data that we see at the moment? So whilst phishing is still going to be there, are the types of information on Web3 going to be slightly different? So spam is another good example there, sort of fourth on the list. We know it really well within normal email. Spam email, normally delivers a lot of the phishing and malware, but in Web3, you can also have NFT spam tokens. So these masquerade genuine projects. This then cause users to inadvertently invest in scams, resulting in financial losses, broken trust. These spam tokens can exploit vulnerabilities in smart contracts, which cause security risks and financial harms to users. So a slightly different definition of spam there, but still causing harm. So it's really important. And then some of the other side as well, there's a lot of work that goes on against CSAMs, the child sexual abuse material. And the IPFS is certainly something on Web3 that is, going to be really important that we properly address in those forms of abuse. Federico, I don't know if you wanted to reflect on any of those ones before I went on to the next slide.
Yes, with pleasure. Just few information I'd like to share that maybe helps also understand why we are still considering that this kind of harms can still also happen also Web3, and also what are maybe some things that changes. So first of all, on the phishing, we have a situation where currently we have DeFi platforms such as also Swap, where users, they can actually exchange their own tokens. So for example, let's say I have a stable coin, I want to change it with another one on a swap, I can do it. However, there are a lot of fake swap that copies totally the entire user interface of the application that is normally used as a swap, and user, they just goes into fake application, run the transaction, but with those transactions, all the content that they have inside their wallet is wiped out. Okay, and they don't have the knowledge to understand they are falling into a phishing website. So that's a thing that is already happening right now, and there are a lot of tokens stolen because of that. On spam, it's important to address that on blockchain, you receive passively new assets. What I mean by that is that the kind of spam that also Chris explained, which is NFT spamming, it works in this way. Users, like attackers, they take and create a lot of NFTs, which are assets with a picture, with some information, and they send them directly inside your wallet. So when you open your wallet, you're gonna see all these assets. The thing is that some of these are just an advertisement and you cannot remove them. Others, are not an advertisement. They are fake tokens that when you start using them or just to interact with them, they actually run operation on your wallet. For example, stealing funds. So it's important to keep attention to these kind of attacks here. On the other point of CSAM, since actually a lot of Web3 domains, but besides the Web3 domains, also the content is stored into IPFS, which stands for International Planetary Interplanetary File System. Okay, it means that all the assets like files, data that we can save them into a decentralized network of computers. Those are not on blockchain, but it's a network of computers that using a protocol, they provide you content. However, when you put the content there, it's difficult to be removed, first of all. Second point is that since there are no standard interfaces of communication, it's difficult to prevent someone to upload some kind of content, which means that it's an awesome arm to actually prevent this kind of publication and access to this material and to monitorize them. Please go further, Chris.
Yeah, thank you. So going further into some other harms. So as I mentioned, a lot are sort of financially motivated. And where we see some of the unique side of this is in the decentralized financial side, so DeFi. So you'll hear lots of new acronyms compared to useful. So NFT spams, rug pulls is a very big one that happens a lot on decentralized financial. That's where something is set up. It all seems very legitimate, get people to invest in those platforms, and then the platform is pulled and the people running those platforms take all the assets away with them, or the financial gains they've had, and no longer reply. So again, very similar to sort of the pyramid type schemes and other things that we've already seen standard, but just different ways of doing it and looking at applications. So I think what's going to be really key is how we are able to define these, and then this leads to how we are able to evidence the different types of harms to be able to go into that. And as the others, there are still going to be lots of harms that we already are familiar with, illicit substances being sold, pharma type Web3 shops being able to be used there, and sort of slightly outside of the normal is where people don't follow what is the community norm within that application, where they stray outside of the use or the intended use of that platform. And all of those can create an environment that is not welcoming to users and doesn't produce a safe and good platform, which is at the end of the day where the Web3 community want to get to, is to a platform that is very trusted and can be used safely. So Federico, anything on the DeFi side or anything like that you wanted to share?
With pleasure. DeFi is an important point on this, as we mentioned before. DeFi stands for decentralized finance, and it's a set of website applications, dApps, that they take all these tokens that are created to the blockchains, and they actually handle operation like borrowing and lending, and using some mathematical operation, and also since everything is behind the program, they make application that where you lend something on a side, that maybe is then borrow on another place and then lend it on another one. And creating these, they create a chain of value, of interest that users actually benefit from it. However, besides the fact that it is a higher risk environment, so user needs to take knowledge of that, there is another problem, which is regarding itself how the DeFi system itself behaves. DeFi system can be actually exploited, so maybe they can have some attacks. But also it's important to keep in track, as we said before, they're going to have maybe some phishing situations. And since we are talking about numbers that has a lot of value, what actually can happen behind this kind of situation is a big deal. So it's important to acknowledge and to trust. Moreover, there is another point that I'd like to share, which is when you actually interact with the blockchain, you are running transactions. Those transactions are transactions that requires a digital signature that user just click with the button inside their own wallet. However, wallet, they try to show you what are the transactions they are trying to send. However, if, for example, the transaction is a complex chain of operation that happens one after the other, what occurs is that the wallet itself is not capable to understand what you are sending. So because of this, okay, there are situations where the wallet will show just binary code, and the user will just sign it without maybe acknowledging what is actually happening behind. This is where also a lot of attacks happens. Please go, Chris.
Yeah, thank you. And so just before I go onto this last slide, this is the last, well, sorry, the last slide around defining harms. As Lars said, if you do have any questions, please put them in chat. We'll try and answer them as we go. We will also have a section at the end for questions. But yeah, if you do have any as you go, please put them in the questions box and we'll try to answer them as we go. So on this last page of defining harms, you'll see these are all very similar and along the same lines as what we would consider as normal harms at the moment. And these really sort of match up within possible harms on Web3 platforms as well. One of the key principles behind Web3 is giving users and individuals more control as a community as what they accept as possible. And I think these harms really speak to where when a Web3 platform or application is set up, there really needs to be some norms set for the use of those platforms. So some understanding of where a joke goes too far and becomes cyberbullying, what becomes acceptable, what's not acceptable, and an understanding of that use on that platform. That in turn allows us to collect some of the data that we'll go into, allows us to properly evidence the misuse and the harms being caused, to be able to take action on that. I think the good news is there is action that you can take. It's still all on the blockchain, as we'll go into, but I think realistically, what a lot of the work that we've done here is how do we set those norms? How do we set those standards? A lot of it starts with the defining, but then also that lends itself very much to the evidencing. Federico, I don't think you had anything on this one, but if you do.
There is one question from the audience regarding this slide. There's one question from Helene. Can you please give the difference between doxing and trolling? Thanks.
Yeah, so on the doxing front, that's normally the release of personal information to obviously sort of name and shame people. So that can generally happen to then try and extort them for further information, or it can involve sending other people around to their houses. So that tends to be what doxing is around. And trolling is more where someone is trying to deliberately upset someone online or cause them sort of mental harm around that side. So that's the difference between those. And I think, and this is the reason why it's very important to get those defined, because knowing what the difference is, knowing how you're affected, and calling it one thing or another, and whether that's acceptable or not, is really key. Was that the only one, Lars? On the...
No, we have a follow-up question. If someone creates a fake news website to spread harmful disinformation, and for creating such a fake news website, the perpetrator uses a domain name that resembles the domain name of the real trusted news website, can it be considered as a form of DNS abuse? For example, there is a real news website, union.ua, and there were many fake news websites created to spread harmful disinformation that imitate the real website, like union.pm, union.in, etc., etc. Could it be considered as a DNS abuse that needs to be addressed? Thank you. That's from Pablo.
Yeah, thanks, Lars. So we're looking here at Web3 abuses. All the abuses here that we're looking at are things that could be considered abuse on a Web3 platform. So I like to get away from what is DNS abuse. DNS abuse can get very technical. What we're looking at, and certainly at CleanDNS, is what abuse or what is considered abuse on a platform and what can be evidenced as abuse. So to go for those details, and I can't see the full, there you go, I can now, on that would all depend on the platform. You know, if it's a Web3 platform that does news, copying someone else's news platform and changing the content of that, probably in a community would be, you know, accepted as not being the correct course of action. So that would be considered abuse. You could evidence that by how that fake website is very similar, it's made look the same. If that is in line with what is regarded as abuse, then action could be taken against that and could be mitigated. So I think this is the key thing here, is around defining what is abuse and then what is needed to evidence that abuse for appropriate action to be taken.
Thank you. So there are no further questions right now, so please go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, Chris, please go.
No, go on. If you did, what I was just going to say, did you want to add anything, Federico?
All good. I think we can go on the next slide.
Perfect. So we've talked about the importance of defining abuse, and now we're going to look at evidencing those harms and what sort of data is available, especially considering the Web3 platform, Web3 platforms. So really essential aspect is being able to evidence different aspects of the abuse. This enables good and consistent reporting. I think one of the things we've always heard is how, I'll say, varied reporting can be. Having consistent and actionable reports is really important. Really enables responsible parties to take correct and quick action to mitigate the abuse and the harm being caused. And I think that's one thing that we see at CleanDNS. The quicker we or one of our parties are able to take mitigative action, it vastly reduces the harm being caused. And I think you know, this is really key going forward, is one, being able to identify quickly, but also being able to have the right information, take that quick and swift action, really hard and really important going forward. So what types of information are we looking at for evidence to be able to prove that? Screenshots are wonderful things because generally what you see is the thing that is causing some of those harms. So, you know, if it is a list of NFTs that have been pushed into wallet, being able to capture all of those and show those as not being right, catching some of those details is really important. Saving messages, recording the full strings around that, so the full wallet IDs necessarily, along with a URL string if it's linked to a URL, is really important evidence to be able to do that. And a lot of times, some of the reports, you know, might just be the top level of a domain or a domain string that can be, you know, compromised further down if there's a part of it. So I think it's really important to be able to say exactly where the element is that is causing the abuse. Metadata within a lot of this is very important as well. And it's important to detail some of how this has happened, especially as you come into this sort of decentralized finance side. Being able to say this came through, clicked on this then caused an issue, you know, what got lost, how it got lost, and maintain detailed records of that is good. You're not always going to get all of this, but knowing it's there, knowing how to get it is really, really important. Federico, anything to add on that slide?
I just want to add also, which is important, to keep track and copy not only the wallet address, but also the smart contract address. If you have, for example, use a token or interact with a smart contract, every time you're doing this kind of operation, those are tracked on the blockchain. Each kind of interaction is tracked with its own specific transaction identity, which it's an hash, and also with smart contract you have interact with, which is the actor on the blockchain. Copying and so keeping track of these it's important because it's a way to document evidences regarding maybe stealing of your own assets or different kind of threats we've seen before. Please go last.
I've got another question in the questions part, if I may interrupt here. The question is from Catherine from Identity Digital. You may cover this later, but how do the mitigating efforts differ from Web3 and Web3, particularly as the harms are largely shared across the two?
Yeah.
If you,
I was going to say, do we want to park that until we've gone through the mitigation slides? And then, Catherine, if we haven't answered it, then maybe we'll come to it there, if that's okay.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
if you want to, please go.
Sorry, there you go. Yeah. Sorry, a second to unmute. So on reporting the harm, there's a number of ways you can report that. Obviously, we've talked about some of the evidence you can collect. Report to the platform is generally the right mechanism, but you'll see here we've got report to the platform. I am ex-law enforcement, so I will also say if there's a criminal offence, always contact law enforcement. So it's really important. There's third-party reporting tools. There's support organisations you can make use of. You may need legal advice, especially if there's business implications. you also may know other people that have used the platform that might have also suffered harm. So collective reporting could be really useful. But on there, there's lots of, you could report to here, and I think one thing going forward within Web3 that's really important is to have a standardized mechanism to report this. So a common abuse reporting tool is really important. That would probably be outside of law enforcement reporting, because those mechanisms are very different. But to be able to get mitigation actions to take place, it's really important that some of those collection of those evidence is standardized. Really helps in the ability to be able to deal with reported harms, is to have the sort of standard data feed that you are able to make decisions from the correct evidence. And then just on here, if we've got, there's a varied amount of technical knowledge generally. The last thing I think any one of us here on the webinar wants to do is to encourage people to start clicking links to get more information. So it's always prioritize your safety. So I just wanted to flag that one as well. There's a lot of good cybersecurity professionals, and sure, on a lot of behalves, just being able to report the abuse, even if you can't collect the evidence, that you can, and just say that this would need to be collected by someone more technical. If you're not competent to do so, I would recommend you don't. Federico, anything on the sort of reporting side?
Actually, you have already shared most of the important things. There are right now tools for reporting specific kind of harms. There's not a lot, and there is a space, important space of standardization of the tool and the information that needs to be collected. What we are seeing is that we are seeing a new kind of technology, which is bringing new opportunities, new solution, new application, new adoption of this technology. And with that, the raising of new ways to receive attacks and harms. So reporting tools, it's a prior important thing because it helps to collect as much as we can data in terms of kind of attacks and where this happens. And also, thanks to that, it's important and it's ideal to study if there's some patterns behind what it actually is rising in terms of harms.
Perfect, thank you. So next I'll pass over to Federico to go into the sort of data fields in Web3 that are specific to Web3 that could be used and would help with reporting. Federico.
Yes, I will actually share a bit of information that are across what is the blockchain environment and also Web3 domains, because it's important to keep into track what we are talking about. First of all, we need to discuss about the data information that we have. When we are dealing with the blockchain, we are dealing with assets on the digital environment with their own specific characteristics. However, we can actually define down some common ground information that we can track and we can use to address this kind of harms. These data, this information, in case of an NFT, are some. In case of Web3 domain, there are others. Right now, we're going to see these together. So first of all, on each kind of data presented in the blockchain, we have someone, which is the signer of that transaction that has published that information. The signer is a wallet address. And having that address over there, using that, we can recursively see all the history inside all the blockchain that the wallet has been used to see what it has done. This actually helps to address and find out if maybe the wallet has done some malicious activity in the past. And also it's possible in this way to understand when maybe some frauds took place before actually enabling the user to interact with it. There are really tools right now that keep tracks of these kind of wallets that are getting into a little blacklist. So with this, already some users by interacting with smart contract, if the wallet sees that there is that kind specific wallet address which is into the blacklist, it prompts the user to pay attention. So first of all, we can understand the pseudonym behind and every kind of data inserted into. We have also this with IPFS website. It's not on the wallet itself, but on the network computer that has provided that kind of content. So it's easy to actually address also that. However, it's difficult because it's anonymous information. And we have then Web3 domains. The Web3 domains actually handle domains with like the normal ones. So they have their own identity. They actually can be connected into wallet, and you can use that for your own identity or for your website or your purposes. However, differently from the normal domain space, Web3 domains keep tracks of their records directly inside the blockchain. So all the DNS records of a Web3 domain are into the blockchain. And also it has other new records as said before, so for example, crypto wallet addresses and other kind of stuff. Since everything is into the blockchain, it's actually possible to also check all these kind of records to see these wallet addresses, to see if they maybe have some records that points to an IP address of a server that has been tracked as a server that contains malicious content. And so it's possible to fetch, normalize this kind of data and keep track of it. Since everything is into the blockchain, it's possible directly to read it and so understand. The cost right now of integrating everything, it's high, which is it's a blocker, let's say. However, it's important to keep into consideration that we can use with specific APIs, SDK, really we can interact and start doing communication with smart contract to enable users to browse and so Web3 domains, and so also to index this kind of content. This close to what we want to say, that is so always important to find a standard tool that can actually help to tackle the reports of all the content and all malicious activities. Because getting more data helps better than actually a platform that we use to interact with the blockchain environment to have this information and prevent possible attacks. Please, Lars. Also, Chris, if you want to share something,
switching on my
please.
camera is always a sign that there are questions in the questions part. So there's a question from Stefan Hefele. Where can I see the blacklists for Web3 and what tools are available for those? And one question that he already asked before, where do I see smart contracts?
Okay, great questions. So happy to address this. I will start with the last one. So smart contracts are, first of all, they are compiled information. So they are binaries that are executed onto the blockchain. However, it's important to say that smart contracts that wants to deliver a value to the community, so they want to behave trust, they also publish their own source code, open source. On the blockchain, there is a kind of application for each blockchain, which is called the scanner. The scanner scans the blockchains and scans all the transaction that occurs. For example, for Ethereum blockchain, there is Etherscan. For Polygon scan, for Polygon there is Polygon scan. And when you access into it, you can see already a lot of transactions, smart contract, wallets with their own assets. So you can go into a smart contract and you can open that and you can directly see if it has published their own open source code, and so you can check it out. So this is a thing. The second one, where do we find this blacklist of data? Right now, there are different platforms that actually can, they collect this kind of data. There is one which is called Chain Analysis, which is a company that keeps tracks of all the blockchain's transactions and sees if there is value that is being stolen or maybe transactions that are malicious. So they already do that. There are other players into the market, and so but there's let's say it's a market that is rising. So there is sure need to keep track of that, and there is a lot of space for this kind of purpose. Because as you've seen, we have transaction of value, but we have also transaction of interactions. We have transaction on smart contracts. So there are complexities. There is one last thing we'd like to share. There is a tool interesting which is called Tenderly that actually helps to simulate the execution of the transaction before you run it. This helps to actually see if what you are expecting to do actually is the thing that's going to happen right there.
So thank you for this. There was one remark, including one question regarding the evidencing part, and that was from Carsten Schiefner. So his remark is that evidencing included downloading content, and from his perspective, he raises the point that this is certainly not advisable when it comes to certain types of content, like CSAM, for example. And and he's asking, is there any other example you know of where downloading other types of content is not advisable?
Well, for example, there are content which is top secret from the government that are sometimes published outside. I remember when there was the anonymous operations happening during the previous decade, and there was a lot of government stuff that was published. The content there, you're not supposed to see that, and it keeps track also the openers. So it's important, that one. Oh, also, it's important to, so I don't actually mention malwares or that thing because actually it's obvious. Okay. On the Web3 space, however, what I see as problem is that if you have a user that can access into a space which is not monitorized, and also where people can actually publish what they want because there are not prevention mechanism to tutelate what actually has been published, you can actually, without maybe knowing, you are maybe downloading not appropriate content that maybe can be harmful. So it's always important to keep track and attention, and also to monitor if the project you are dealing with has a community that uses that project and is reporting maybe issues or something.
Thank you. There's another follow-up question on the block list if we have the time. So that's from Josh Kuo.
Last, sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, just to build on that last one, totally agree. You must not download any CSAM content if you do find it. It's just a URL string that should be recorded. And I would say the same goes for, not at the same level, but PII type information. So if there's a data breach, including lots of PII, again, in a lot of countries, downloading that could be against the law. It varies different jurisdictions, so I would also avoid that, but recording the full string from where it's being displayed would be the advisable point there. Thanks.
Thank you for this. So the follow-up question on the blacklist is from Josh Kuo. So his question is, in traditional DNS, there is a mechanism, RPZ, that can be used to propagate the blacklist information. Is there something similar for Web3 DNS, or is there one being worked on?
Currently, there are no Web3 DNS. So the resolution happens because there are application or interfaces that helps to dialogue with the blockchain website domains to fetch the data. And because there are no standards currently, there are also this kind of limitation into blacklisting content. This is why right now there are companies that are running reporting tools and collecting data, because it's the first step to help when also there is a standardization of all these environment, which is sure the market is moving and driving, there's going to be also this kind of solution. Right now, we need to monitor and also to keep track and try to address with the technology that we have and what we can provide more later to support and solve these kind of situations.
Yeah, and
Thank you. No
to
further
build
questions
on,
right now.
no, thank you, Lars. So just to build on that last one, I think that's really key is how to build in dealing with those sort of block lists. We see some browser level things, and obviously getting onto Web3, you need browser integration. And I think how those extensions or apps deal with resolving those really needs to take into account the block lists, and standardizing that or being able to do that, I think, is key moving forward. As Federico said, we're still very early stages, and what we want to be able to do is build this and build this right. And I think that's where we're pushing for together, is to get this built and built in a way that we can protect people.
If you want to go further, Chris, then if there are other questions from us, if you want to go further, I go straight on. So it's important to keep into track and to consider that on the Web3 space, as we can see, in contrast with the conventional web system, there are different approaches in the data management. Okay, so at first, there is not a direct binding with the person behind the operation that is happening, because transaction can be run by wallet, but wallet can be owned by multiple users. So this means that if they stole your private keys, someone else can run on your behalf operation on your assets. So this is important to keep into mind. Second point important is that there is sometimes wallet can have multi-signature operation. So there's going to be others that can maybe interact together to run operations. And also there's not individuals, also because we're talking sometimes about smart contracts that directly runs operation on the blockchain. This means that an application itself, without the usage of that person, can actually interact with the blockchain and can create other smart contracts. So this is important to keep in mind. Second thing, the linking to blockchain wallets. So an asset itself can be linked to blockchain wallet and can be identified with the blockchain wallet. This is important. However, we can have some situation where the linking itself, it's not the manager itself of the asset itself. What I mean by that, I can be the owner, but Chris can be the manager. And every kind of operation that he runs on the asset without maybe my consent. Or second situation, we can have meta transactions. That is a characteristic where I can signature an operation to be run, but then the actual work on the blockchain and the writing and the transaction fees paid are paid by Chris. At the end point, it seems that it's Chris running the operation, but I'm actually the one that has signed that. Last point, there is the airdrop activities. As mentioned before, you can become owner of assets on the blockchain without actually wanting to, like fake tokens, like NFTs, like any kind of values. So it's important to keep into consideration that not all the owners of an asset or something are actually people that they have wanted to have that asset. So, and this is because the blockchain enables you to receive passively assets. Chris, do you want to add something more? If not, all good. Please go further. And then there is other important things. So there are behavior across the spaces. So differently from, as we say, a standard situation, we have different ways of how blockchains works, and also Web3 domains in our case works in different blockchains. Since there are applications that does not belong to a specific standard, our Web3 domains are different from other Web3 domains. Because there is this kind of differentiation, the kind of interaction and the kind of way to track data becomes more difficult because there's not a standard behind. And every time, this is a cost in terms of implementation and also in terms of dealing with the data behind to track and prevent threat and action and harms. And then last point is that financial data. So every transaction is visible on blockchain, so you can keep track of everything, and so you can also see the money flows. So these are characteristics of the blockchain environment that we need to keep track when we are talking about reporting and handling these kind of things. So this is why if we can copy the smart contract address, the transaction address, it's useful because we can keep them from that chain of information. We can see all that has going on before into the past. If you want to go further. Okay, so we have a bit of mitigations. I'll let you, Chris, start, and then we'll join on that.
Thanks, Federico. So I think we sort of mentioned the first one a little bit, and that's the security by design side. So integrating security into Web3 applications and platforms is really important. So we mentioned some of the block lists, building that into sort of browser integration, extension integration into that. Really, really key to how to deal with this. Generally, users aren't going to go into the blockchain to see what changes have been made. So having the browser being able to block or only to display the most recent update to that blockchain can really prevent access to the harm. And certainly on IPFS, changing that to point something else and not having the browsers or the applications allow to go backwards within that blockchain is going to be really important. Doesn't stop it happening, but that security by design is really important to us being able to take mitigative action against harms within sort of Web3 space. And then I will also just quickly touch on the sort of regulatory framework side. As we mentioned, some of the sort of principles around Web3 are having community self-governance, regulations built in by the users, and having the users be able to do the governance. And it's really important that that is built from the start and not bolted on afterwards. Once the horse is bolted, to use a phrase, it's really hard to get the horse back into the stable. So making sure those regulatory sides are in place, first of all, are really key. And having that first things in place, reporting of harms, again, standards of what is reported, how it's reported, how it can be reported to law enforcement is really key to us being able to take mitigative action. Over to you, Federico.
Thank you, Chris. I also want to share that all the mitigation of activities should happen both on the centralized content moderation, which means that there should be the need of more important and open database of all this kind of data to keep track of possible threats and maybe malicious addresses, smart contract. This helps to prevent the environment. And also, if we imagine on a wallet side, that is where users interact with the blockchains and interact with the operation, wallet should actually implement safety measures to actually keep track and prevent any kind of threat of attack. There are a lot of work right now that they are doing, but I think it's necessary that if we want to, and we see our Web3 becoming more massive used into the normal internet, it's necessary that this kind of security measures should be implemented as soon as possible. I see Lars coming out from from the call.
No,
Lars.
I just wanted to flag that we reached the top of the hour. We don't have any further questions left on the questions part, so from that end we are safe.
Okay.
So, any final remarks, please?
Yes.
So I just want to. Sorry.
Please go, Chris. Please go.
So yeah, so I'll just pull up the last slide from us as well. So I think there's sort of 5 commitments here that I think really need key to success of Web3 and reporting abuse and mitigating abuse in there. So I think we've mentioned those, the common abuse reporting tool, the creation and maintenance of evidencing standards and reporting, commitment to mitigate harms within the Web3 space. So from all of the different people making and writing applications and deploying Web3, how we measure and track abuse, volumes, demographics, tracking very much, as we've heard from some of the other top DNS presenters in the series. And then on top of that is that creation within the community and the platforms of the norms of those aspects. Federico, anything from you?
All good. Also my side. One thing that would like maybe to share on this, it's that the commitment is to robust and lower the cost for other developers and institutions to actually interact with blockchains, not only from a perspective of using tokens and pay fees, but also from a perspective where it's important to reduce the cost of facing different kind of integration and maybe more standard environment of interpretation of the data. This is helpful because by lowering these, we are more comfortable to provide and make an environment which is much more safer, first of all. And second, also important, is that you can have much more data of maybe possible threat and attacks, and you can mitigate and prevent before. The example before of actually enabling to check more the IPFS content that is uploaded, it's a way. So if we have a standard way to check and prevent, we can be maybe sure that later that browsers or application that support IPFS can check if that hash of the specific file you want to download is a CSAM or an abuse content. So looking into this kind of perspective, there is where the future is moving. I think it's necessary that the market should address, and we of course address as much as we can standardization activities and also data analytics tools to open and share reports that we maybe expect in order to then define together also a standardized reporting tool to handle all these kind of threats together.
Okay, thank you. So we don't have any further questions in the questions part, and we are already a little bit over time. So first of all, thank you, Federico. Thank you, Chris, for your presentation and for taking the time. I think the volume of question has shown that Web3 is still a new space for many out there, and that there are still a lot of questions, but also many answers that you were able to give today, and that you're very, very early stages in working on making Web3 a more secure and also trusted space. So this is great to see that you started to work on this very early. So we will follow your work very closely, and we'll of course invite you also in the future to further updates on your work on this in this context and in this webinar series. So happy to have you in the future again with us. So again, thank you for the presentation. Thank you to the audience for participating in this. I think this was very interesting, and we hope that you thought that this is interesting and informative for you as well. As I mentioned in the beginning, you have the opportunity to provide feedback via the survey that will be displayed when you close the GoToWebinar tool. And it would be great to see you at one of the future webinars in the next year again here at the topDNS Best Practice Webinar Series. And with this, thank you to everybody who participated in this, and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.